I'm about to show you one of the cutest things you have probably ever seen. And if you live in the UK, you have probably never seen it before. Because when I was in Tokyo, I saw a couple people with this thing. Oh my god, it's really moving. This is a Mirumi. This is not a typical little bag charm. This is a robot, and you put your Mirumi on your bag like this. Mirumi.
Okay, so apparently we're doing this again. Because if you thought we had finally escaped the era of adults walking around with tiny creatures hanging from their bags, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. There's a new little creature in town, except this time it isn't just a plush doll staring blankly into your soul, because apparently that wasn't technologically advanced enough. This one moves. Meet Mirumi, the tiny robotic bag charm that can sit on your bag, turn its head, reacts to sound and movement around it, and generally behave like a tiny, curious creature that has absolutely no business being this adorable. And I'm looking at this and thinking, haven't we done this already? Because this feels incredibly familiar. First, it was the Labubu craze, where suddenly people who had spent their entire lives carrying perfectly normal bags decided that what their outfit was missing was a small, slightly terrifying creature dangling from it. Then came the collecting, the limited releases, the resales, and then we asked the inevitable question: what's next? Well, apparently this is next. And honestly, I can't even be mad at the marketing strategy, because whoever designed this understood exactly how the internet works. A normal bag charm is cute. A robotic bag charm that moves when you interact with it. Or now you have content. You can film it reacting to someone, you can film it turning its head, you can film it sitting on your bag while you're walking around. You can film an unboxing, you can film your reaction to the unboxing, you can film someone else's reaction to your Mirumi, and suddenly you've turned a tiny accessory into an entire social media ecosystem. That's the genius of modern product. They don't just have to be something you own anymore. They have to be something you can post, because if your product can become content, then it's already fighting an uphill battle. Think about the difference between a normal bag charm and this thing. A normal charm hangs there. That's it. It does not have a personality, it doesn't react, it doesn't move, and it certainly doesn't give you anything to record after the initial purchase. But Mirumi does. It creates this tiny moment that make people want to pull out their phones. And that's incredibly important, because modern consumer products aren't competing only for your money, they're competing for your attention. If something makes you stop scrolling, it has already won half the battle. And Mirumi has one of the most powerful ingredients in internet culture: cuteness. We human beings are ridiculously vulnerable to cute things. Give something a tiny face, a round body, oversized features, and movements that resemble a baby or a curious animal, and suddenly our brain starts doing this weird dance thing. That's why baby animals get millions of views. That's why plush toys become collectibles. And that is why people name their cars, their plant, and their robotic vacuum cleaner. We like giving objects personalities. Mirumi simply takes that psychological trick and puts it into a tiny robot that can actually react to you. And this is where the Labubu comparison becomes interesting, because Labubu didn't become huge simply because the character was cute. Labubu became a cultural phenomenon because it existed at the intersection of collecting, scarcity, social media, fashion, and identity. You were buying something that can be displayed, something that can be attached to your bag, something that you could collect, something you could photograph. And Mirumi seemed to understand that formula, except it adds something Labubu doesn't have: movement. This tiny thing can actually react with its surroundings, which creates a completely different kind of attachment. Because a static collectible can be cute, but a little object that reacts to you starts to feel almost alive. And then, before you know it, you start treating it like a companion instead of an ordinary accessory. Let's be honest, nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, my life is incomplete because my handbag lacks a tiny robotic creature. That's not how consumerism works. Very few viral products begin with necessity. They begin with want. And then social media turns that want into a perceived need. First you see someone else with it, then you see another, then another, then an influencer unboxes it, then someone makes a things I carry in my bag video, and Mirumi is sitting right there looking adorable. Then someone says, I finally got one, and suddenly you're wondering where they bought theirs. You shouldn't wake up wanting Mirumi. The internet introduced the idea until the idea felt familiar. Then familiar became desire, and that, my friends, is how trends work. Mirumi is entering a market where consumers have already been trained to understand that formula. So it doesn't have to teach people how to collect. It just has to give them something new to collect. And that might be its biggest advantage. But there is another question we should ask. Will people still care about Mirumi when the internet moves on? Because that's the difficult part of becoming a viral product. The internet has a terrible memory. Today you're the hottest thing on everyone's feed, and next month you are old news. Now that brings us back to the original question. Why are people walking around with a cute robot charm? Is it because it's cute? Because it's novel? Or because it makes for good content? Or is it because human beings become emotionally attached to things that behave like little creatures? And perhaps most importantly, is it because social media has become incredibly good at telling us what we should find interesting? And I don't think that automatically makes Mirumi bad. In fact, I think it's actually a pretty clever little product. Although there's some people that are skeptical online and saying that it might be a recording device that monitors your movement, records whatever it is you were saying. So that might be another conspiracy part of Mirumi, because everyone thinks it's weird having a bug charm that moves, that reacts to movement and speech. But we don't really know exactly how true that is. But bigger story here is Labubu might eventually disappear. Mirumi might become the next massive collectible, or maybe we'll all completely forget about both of them and be arguing over some other tiny object 6 months from now. But that's almost beside the point, because the real trend isn't even Labubu or Mirumi. It's the endless cycle of discover, desire, buy, collect, display, become bored, and repeat. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.